She stood barefoot on a busy street in Cebu, her tiny voice fighting against the noise of traffic and rain. People passed by without noticing until one man stopped, recording her on his phone. That video would soon travel halfway across the world, straight to Simon Cowell's desk. And when he heard her voice, the world would witness a moment no one would ever forget. The streets of Cebu were alive with noise, jeepneys honking, vendors calling, and rainwater splashing against cracked pavement. Amid that chaos stood a little girl named Lara, no older than 12, barefoot and holding a weathered guitar almost as tall as she was. Her fingers, small and rough from chores, moved gently across the strings, coaxing a melody that didn't belong to the noise of the streets. It belonged to dreams. She sang beneath a flickering streetlight, her voice soft at first, then stronger, rising above the hum of the city. It wasn't just a song, it was her story. A story of a girl who had lost her father to illness, who watched her mother wash clothes by the river until her hands cracked from soap and cold water. A story of a family that had almost nothing except faith. And that voice, each night, she sang the same song, one she'd written herself. Someday, she whispered between verses, I'll sing on a real stage. But most nights, no one stopped. People walked past, their eyes glued to their phones, their pockets empty for spare change. Some smiled politely. Most didn't even notice. Still, she sang. The only audience she had were stray dogs resting near her feet, and the faint glow of the moon above. Her mother, sitting nearby with a small basket of laundry, would look up and smile, whispering, keep singing, Anak, someone will hear you. But as the nights passed, Lara began to wonder if that someone would ever come. Then one evening, as the last bit of sunlight faded behind the rooftops, a man stopped, a tourist camera slung over his shoulder, eyes curious. He listened, really listened, as Lara's trembling voice filled the air. Her tone was pure, untouched by training, yet filled with emotion that only hardship could teach. When she finished, the man clapped softly. He kneeled beside her and said, you have a voice that the world needs to hear. Lara blushed, staring at her bare toes. I just sing for Mama, she murmured. The man smiled. Then sing for the world too. Can I record you? She nodded shyly. He took out his phone and filmed as she sang again, this time with her whole heart. The streetlight above flickered, casting a golden glow as her voice carried through the humid night air. When she finished, the man thanked her and slipped a few bills into her guitar case before walking away. Lara didn't think much of it. She went home that night, holding her mother's hand, unaware that her life had just begun to change. That video, just a few minutes long, would soon travel across oceans, across millions of screens, and into the hands of a man who would change her destiny forever. 3 days after that rainy evening, Lara sat outside her small bamboo house, humming softly while helping her mother hang damp clothes on a line. The sky was warm and pink, the air thick with the scent of sea breeze and detergent. Life had returned to its quiet rhythm until their neighbor, Tita Nena, came running down the dusty path, waving her hands and shouting breathlessly, Lara, your video, it's everywhere. You're on Facebook. You're on YouTube. Lara frowned in confusion. She didn't even own a phone. Her mother laughed, thinking it was some mistake. But when Tita Nena showed them her cracked phone screen, there it was. A video of Lara singing under the streetlight, viewed millions of times. Comments poured in from around the world. Who is this angelic voice? This girl deserves the world. This made me cry. Lara's mother covered her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. Anna, people are listening. A week later, a letter arrived, not through mail, but through a man who had come all the way from Manila, representing a production company. He handed Lara a sealed envelope with the Britain's Got Talent logo printed in bold letters. Inside was a simple message. We would like to formally invite Lara Mendoza from Cebu, Philippines, to audition in person for Britain's Got Talent in London. For a moment, no one moved. Lara's mother sank into a chair, her hands trembling. London, she whispered. Lara didn't speak. She didn't even breathe. The little girl who sang on the streets was being called to the biggest stage in the world. But then reality set in. They had no passports, no savings, no way to afford a plane ticket. Her mother tried to smile, hiding the pain behind her eyes. Maybe it's not meant for us, Anna. That night, Lara lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling. She whispered a prayer to her father in heaven. Papa, if this is really my dream, please show us how. The next morning, Lara woke to find her mother at the market, selling their only goat. It was the family's last valuable thing, the one her father had raised before he died. When Lara realized what her mother had done, she began to cry. Her mother pulled her close and whispered, dreams don't come twice, Anna. Let this one take you where mine never could. Weeks passed in a blur of paperwork and preparation. Neighbors gathered to help. One paid for the passport photo, another lent luggage. When Lara finally boarded the plane for the first time in her life, she held her father's old guitar close, wrapped in cloth. She pressed her forehead against the window as the plane took off, the city of Cebu shrinking below her. Please, God, she whispered, let them hear what I feel inside. Little did she know, the next time she sang, the whole world would be listening. The air inside the London theater buzzed with excitement. Cameras moved across the crowd, lights shimmered from every corner, and 1,000 eyes turned toward the stage. Backstage, Lara stood alone, clutching her father's worn guitar. Her hands trembled. She could hear the echo of laughter and applause from the act before her, and her heart pounded in her chest like a drum. A kind stagehand crouched beside her and whispered, "You'll be great, love, just sing like you do at home." She nodded faintly, her throat dry, eyes wide as the curtain began to lift. When the announcer called, "Please welcome Lara Mendoza from the Philippines," the theater erupted in polite applause. A small girl stepped onto the grand stage, barefoot, wearing a simple white dress her mother had sewn from leftover cloth. Her guitar looked out of place among the glimmering spotlights, but she held it like treasure. Simon Cowell raised an eyebrow. He'd seen countless performers before, most full of confidence, some even arrogance. But this girl, she looked fragile, nervous, almost lost in the vastness of the stage. He leaned back in his chair, curious. Lara took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "Hello, my name is Lara. I come from Cebu, in the Philippines." Her accent was thick, but her sincerity was clear. Amanda smiled warmly. "What will you be singing today, sweetheart?" Lara hugged her guitar a little tighter. "A song I wrote for my papa." The audience went silent. When the first notes left her lips, something shifted in the air. Her voice was soft, trembling at first, then stronger, deeper, filled with emotion that seemed far too big for her small body. She sang of missing her father, of nights spent under streetlights, of hope that refused to die. Each lyric was a piece of her heart laid bare before the world. The judges exchanged glances. Alicia wiped a tear. Even Simon, known for his sharp critiques, felt something stir in his chest, something he hadn't felt in a long time. As the final note lingered, the theater was utterly still. Then, like a wave, the applause crashed over her, loud, thunderous, unstoppable. People rose to their feet. Some shouted her name, others simply cried. Lara blinked in disbelief, her lips trembling into a shy smile. Her tiny hands clutched the guitar so tightly it almost slipped. She bowed once, awkwardly, then twice, her tears shining in the stage light. Backstage, her mother watched from a small monitor, hands over her mouth, whispering, "That's my daughter. That's my baby girl." On stage, Simon leaned toward the microphone, but instead of speaking, he simply sat there, eyes fixed on Lara, speechless. He didn't know it yet, but the girl from Cebu had just reminded the entire world what real talent sounds like. For a few seconds after Lara finished her song, the world seemed to stop. The final note hung in the air like a prayer, fragile, trembling, eternal. Then, silence. No one moved, no one breathed. Even Simon Cowell, the man known for his sharp tongue and stone-cold composure, sat still, eyes locked on the small girl standing barefoot in front of him. Lara stared back, unsure what to do. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, her hands still gripping her old guitar, as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. She could feel tears burning in her eyes, not from fear this time, but from the weight of the moment, the realization that, for the first time in her life, people were truly listening. Then, the silence broke. Amanda wiped her eyes first. "Lara," she whispered through the microphone, "I don't think I've ever heard anything quite like that. Your voice. It's not just beautiful, it's honest. It comes from your soul." The audience cheered, clapping wildly, their faces glowing with admiration. Alicia leaned forward, her voice shaking. "You didn't just sing, sweetheart, you felt every word, and we all felt it with you." Bruno stood up, clapping with his usual flair. "You're like a little angel from the streets, sent here to remind us what music is truly about. Heart." Lara blushed shyly, eyes filling again, but still, she looked toward Simon. He hadn't said a word. The audience fell quiet once more, waiting. Camera zoomed in on Simon's face. He stared down for a moment, deep in thought, his hand resting against his chin. Then he stood up slowly. Lara's heart skipped. Simon rarely stood. He walked to the front of the judge's table, leaned into the microphone, and said softly, "You know, I've done this for a long time. I've heard thousands of singers, some amazing, some not so much. But you," he paused, his voice catching for just a moment. "You reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place." Lara's lips quivered. The crowd erupted again, cheering, whistling, chanting her name. Then Simon smiled gently, a rare, genuine smile, and without another word, he turned to his right and pressed the golden buzzer. The sound filled the theater. That powerful, cinematic click, and in an instant, golden confetti exploded from above, raining down like sunlight. Lara gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Her knees gave out, and she fell to the floor, sobbing as the golden light swirled around her. Her mother ran from backstage, hugging her tightly as the crowd rose to their feet in thunderous applause. Simon simply watched, his eyes glassy with emotion. When the noise settled, he said quietly into his mic, "You are proof that greatness can come from anywhere, even from a street corner in Cebu." And as the confetti kept falling, Lara whispered through her tears, "Thank you. Thank you for hearing me." That night, a star was born. Not from fame, but from faith. Weeks after that unforgettable night, the video of Lara's golden buzzer moment spread across the globe. Clips of her performance filled television screens, TikTok feeds, and news headlines. People from every corner of the world, from New York to Nairobi, shared her story. "She's the girl who made Simon Cowell speechless," they said. But to Lara, she was still just the barefoot girl from Cebu, who sang for her papa. Backstage interviews, bright lights, and camera flashes became part of her new world. She was flown to events, asked to smile for magazines, invited to perform on talk shows. But every time someone asked what she wanted most from her fame, Lara would answer softly, "I just want to go home." When the Britain's Got Talent season ended, Lara didn't take home the trophy. Another act won, dancers with glitter and lights. But no one seemed disappointed, because for millions, Lara had already won something far greater: their hearts. As she returned to Cebu, the entire neighborhood gathered at the airport, waving handmade signs and cheering as if a queen had returned home. Children chased her car through the dusty streets, shouting, "Lara, Lara, sing for us." She laughed through tears, rolling down the window to wave back. That evening, she sat again beneath the same flickering streetlight where it all began. Her mother was there, smiling quietly as Lara placed her father's guitar on her lap. This time, when she sang, there were no coins dropped into her case, only smiles, tears, and love from the people who had believed in her long before the world did. Weeks later, Lara made a promise. She used part of her earnings to rent a small space beside the market, an old room with peeling paint and a broken sign. She called it the Little Voices School. It was a place for kids who had no money for lessons, no stage to perform on, but hearts full of dreams. Every morning, barefoot children would gather there, learning to sing, laugh, and believe in themselves. Sometimes, Lara would sit among them and say, "Remember, you don't need fancy clothes or fame to shine. You just need a song that comes from your heart." Her story reached Simon Cowell once more. He sent her a message: "You may not have won the show, Lara, but you've won something far greater. You've inspired the world." One evening, as the sun set over Cebu, Lara looked up at the sky filled with stars. She smiled and whispered, "Papa, we did it." The world would remember her as the poor Cebu girl who left Simon Cowell speechless. But in truth, Lara's legacy was something deeper, a reminder that stars don't only live in the sky. Sometimes, they're born on the streets, waiting for someone to stop and listen.